Today I want to respond to something that's been bothering me a little bit whenever I see it online or whenever people ask me this question. And the question is, drumroll please, my kid is an adult. Why can't they figure it out? They're an adult now. I think a lot of parents seem to assume that once their child reaches adulthood, they should be able to differentiate between the truth and the lies. Children can be easily manipulated by one parent into hating and fearing their other parent. This is child abuse. This is domestic abuse by proxy. This is called parental alienation. But it is possible to fight. Adult children do wake up to reality. Alienated parents do get their children back. Hi, I'm Maddie, and welcome back to the Anti-Alienation Project. Welcome if you're new here. This is Penny, my little co-host today. I was alienated from my dad for 20 years. I actually figured everything out last year, and ever since then I've been pretty passionate about spreading awareness, speaking out against this form of child abuse and domestic violence, and really just learning myself and sharing what I learned. Listen, I do not blame you. If I were in your position, I might be saying the same thing. Why isn't my child realizing the truth? They're an adult. They should be able to think for themselves. They should be able to critically evaluate the world and their reality. I get it. As an alienated child who's figured things out, I spent a lot of time last year and this year blaming myself and feeling stupid for not having figured it out earlier. So I get where you're coming from. Trust me, I do. That being said, I think I have a unique vantage point to maybe offer some insight and my personal opinion about why all the kids don't just figure it out in adulthood. The relationship with the pathological parent and the child, as you may have heard, is very similar to a cult. Now, most of us are not familiar with cults because we have not been in cults. So I'm going to use the metaphor of extreme religion. This is actually part of my story too. Growing up as an alienated child can be likened to growing up in a household characterized by religious extremism or a cult. And here's what I mean by that. So when you're raised in a household that's characterized by religious extremism, and I will speak from my personal experience on this, you're not allowed to believe anything other than the beliefs of your parent. It's not only forced upon you, but you're praised for accepting it, for taking it on as your own. You even get the feeling that you receive more love and affection, and that you're definitely pleasing your parents whenever you accept their religion as their own, or you act out the values and beliefs of the religion. Any acts of defiance or even questioning the religion can bring out rage in your parent. You can even be punished. You can be ostracized in your family. All of this has happened to me. Naturally, what a lot of kids do in this situation is they just accept the religion as their own, and why wouldn't they? When I was 16 or 17, I finally admitted to my mom, I'm not Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore. I'm never going to be Catholic anymore. And as you might imagine, that began World War III in my household, and that war has never been resolved. But all four of my younger brothers are still Catholic. I know that one of the aspects that characterizes the alienated child is they're often independent thinkers. So they come to believe that they are making these decisions by themselves about their parent. Well, I am an independent thinker. That is one characteristic about me. So I had a lot of negative religious experiences with the Catholic Church, as well as personal traumatic events in my life. And then on top of that, I just started to really study the actual beliefs. For example, I started to study the catechism of the Catholic Church, and I found myself not agreeing. And bear with me because I promise this has a point. In all families characterized by extremism, you might find a few children, rarely all of the children, but maybe one or two children who step away from the parents' religion and decide, this isn't for me, this isn't what I believe, these aren't my values. The fallout from that can be intense, but sometimes you will see children form their own opinions separate from their parents, but not always. It's easier for the children mentally, psychologically, and within their social structure of their family to just go along with it or accept it as their own, especially when you have that threat of alienation or being on the outside of your family if you don't. So it really requires a trigger for you to decide to reject the religion that you've been indoctrinated to believe. These triggers can be many different things. It can be you could just simply stop believing in the religious teachings, or that you have negative religious experiences with people in the church, or it could be that there's a scandal or some type of abuse within the religion, or even a traumatic personal event in your own life, like a death of a family member. Or it might just be that your church has become something that you didn't think it was. It becomes politicized. But it always requires a trigger. You don't just find somebody walking away from the religion that they've been indoctrinated into their whole lives without a trigger happening. It could even be a marriage. You get married to someone and they believe a different religion, and for the sake of the kids and the family, you decide to change your religion. So many different triggers out there. In the same way, the alienated child, I believe, is not going to wake up to reality without one or more triggers in their life. So the status quo is going along with the fabricated reality, and it's going to take at least one, probably more than one trigger for that child to wake up. Whether these triggers happen in adolescence or teenage years or young adulthood or later adulthood depends on the person's life. It depends on what happens in their life experience. It depends on so many different factors. So just to assume that once a person reaches age 25 or age 26 or age 27, they should have known by now that that they're living in a false reality. It's Truman Show, wake up Truman. It's just not realistic. You could have a trigger that happens to you when you're 23. And if you're ready to accept the truth, subconsciously ready to, then you might wake up then. So in my own life, I can say for sure that if this hadn't happened, I never would have woken up to the truth. There's so many factors that led to me unraveling the truth over a period of probably years. But I think there are two main factors where I can say if these two things didn't happen, I never would have learned that I had been alienated. Never. I really can say that. I would not have figured it out. This is just my experience. This is not applicable to everyone, of course. But number one is becoming a mother. If I hadn't had babies of my own, I would never have woken up to the mistreatment that I received. When I was going through it as a child, I thought it was okay. For example, taking care of my mom and being her emotional support, even at the age of 7 and 8 and 9, that young, I never thought that was abnormal. It did make me uncomfortable. It did make me feel certain ways, but I didn't realize that it was actually emotional abuse. In having kids, I just know how innocent and how pure children are, and how you, as a parent, you are their teacher. They emulate you. They believe everything you say, especially when they're really young. And so all of that really woke me up. The second thing that I can say, if this hadn't happened, I don't think I would have figured everything out, is that I think if I hadn't been the scapegoated child, I think there's a good chance I may not have figured it out. I wonder if I hadn't been the scapegoated child, whether I would have noticed so much blatant mistreatment and manipulation and brainwashing. So those two factors, becoming a mother and being the scapegoated child, I think really pushed me towards saying the truth. And I also think that a big factor that many studies corroborate is the readiness factor. You have to be ready. You have to be, I think, subconsciously ready. Oh, there's a third factor I forgot about, sorry. Falling in love, marrying my husband, and experiencing unconditional love with my husband and my children, which is a world of difference from the conditional love that I was raised with. I like to consult the research done by parental alienation experts, and there's this amazing study that just came out actually August 3rd of this year, 2023. It was conducted by the University of Tasmania in Australia. Kudos to Australia. Australia, you guys are just killing it. They're doing so much awesome research with parental alienation at the University of Tasmania. I really appreciate it. I think it's just groundbreaking stuff. This study is really interesting, especially to me. I could have been a subject in this study because it looks at voluntary reunification between the alienated child and the targeted parent, and it examines it from both sides, from the alienated child and the targeted parent's point of view. Super cool. It talks about so many things, but it also talks about the triggers that can get children to wake up, or young adults or adults that were children to wake up. And it talks about voluntary reunification. So these are not children who are made to do reunification therapy. These are adults, young adults, just like me, who voluntarily reach out to their targeted parent and want to rebuild that relationship. And this study actually identified 11 catalysts for voluntary reunification. Number 1 was the maturation of the child achieving that cognitive capacity to reflect on their childhood experiences in a more objective manner. This makes so much sense to me. I think that's why we don't see teenagers figuring it out as often, or at all, usually. And then the parent turning on the child. Number 3, experiencing parental alienation as a parent. That should be the last resort for how someone figures this out. I really think we need to target college campuses. People on college campuses need to be aware what parental alienation is, because you need to figure out before you choose your life partner and have kids. Otherwise, you might end up marrying someone who's abusive, just like your parent, and they might alienate your kids from you. Studies have shown now that 50% of alienated children go on to become alienated parents. That's terrifying, needs to change. Number 4, the targeted parent comes back into the child's life and starts to give the child loving, awesome experiences with them that makes the child question their beliefs. 5, attaining a milestone that triggered the need to reconnect with a targeted parent. I don't know if you've seen the interview I did with Samantha, another adult alienated child, but she describes this. She needed her dad to take her to Disney for her chorus concert, and so she had to reach out to her dad, and during that trip they reconnected. So I have seen that happen. Number 6, good old-fashioned therapy, engaging in effective therapy where a therapist can help you figure it out. This is actually part of my story too. My therapist was awesome. She's helped me figure everything out. 7, intervention of the extended family. I have yet to hear of a case where this is true in my own personal experience or talking to other people now. But, there are some aunts, some grandparents, some uncles out there who are brave enough to stand up to that pathological parent and try to get the child to see the truth. And I commend those people. Number 8, intervention of significant others. This I've seen as well. The alienated child gets in a new relationship and their partner questions like, why aren't you close with your dad? Why aren't you close with your mom? They seem to be a good person. So that can absolutely be true. Number 9, seeing the alienating parent mistreat others. 10, discovering that the alienating parent was dishonest. I think this is a big one for a lot of people. Definitely me. Number 11, becoming a parent. I think becoming a parent is a huge one. When you're a child, you can accept that everything coming to you is deserved. But once you have children, you realize it wasn't. And then it mentions finally that voluntary reunification can also be prompted by a crisis or significant change in an adult alienated child's life. I'll link the study in the description for this video. It definitely is worth reading the entire study. This is awesome information. I hope this helps you guys understand a little bit about why kids don't figure it out always at a certain age, why they don't reach adulthood and suddenly figure it out. Again, it's just like you've been indoctrinated in a religion. In order to question those long-held beliefs and your version of reality, there is a lot that goes into that, including the need to put your pride aside and consider that maybe you've been wrong. And it's not to say that it was your fault, you were manipulated and brainwashed, but there is that aspect of having to admit that you've gotten it wrong. And in doing so, you have to admit so many devastating things, that you've hurt your parent unjustifiably. It's a whole mourning process. It's a whole grieving process once you do figure out the truth. And it is easier to just accept the status quo. So if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe and share, all those things. I have set up a Patreon too, so if you're interested in contributing to the project in a more finite way, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm planning on some really great interviews coming up with Dr. Bernet and a video on Caden's Law. I am really excited about this project that I have going on here, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the videos that I've been putting out. I really just want to say a big thank you to everybody watching my videos, sharing my videos, and just supporting what I'm doing here. So thank you. I really appreciate it. So that's all for this video. I hope you gained some insight or learned something new. I'll see you next time. Bye.